Welcome. Hope you're doing well today. Today, we're going to be going over the civil service exam for law enforcement officers and what that means and what you need to look into when it comes to doing your civil service exams. Let's discuss. Before we get started, remember, if you're looking to become a police officer and you need help along the way, we have that free workshop, Getting Started as a Police Officer, right down below, and it's going to walk you through everything. On top of it, it also has a practice civil service exam in it. So go ahead, take it, see where you score, see if that's an area you need to work on. Remember, as I said before, that is one of the areas where you can really stand out and separate yourself from other candidates. Also, if you have something more specific, something that's tailored specifically to you, or you're farther in your application process and you just need advice, I'm here for you. Go ahead, sign up for a free coaching call. I'd love to jump on that call with you, walk you through and help you as best as I can. Both those gifts are down below in the description. Now, the civil service exam. What is it? What's it look like? Am I going to have to do it? All these are a very big lawyer answer. It depends. Some states say that their civil service exam is just a general term, and all it is the POST, which is the police officer service test. And that is a two-part thing that includes a physical test or a physical battery test or physical ability test, a PAT, and then it has a written portion put on it. And some states or some departments just coin that a civil service exam. Other times they opt out of what they call the civil service exam and get a third-party exam, and that's the NTN. And if you need to know more about the NTN, National Testing Network, we did a video on that as well. You can always go look at. But the big thing that you really need to understand is if you're going to just take a civil service exam, which is really just a written exam, let's just focus on calling that a written exam. What's it entail, and what are you going to have to study? Now, there's a lot of study programs out there. Obviously, I'm biased to mine and the one that's in our training program. But the big thing that you need to know is the best thing you can do is prepare for your written exam. That is the quickest way to stand out. Now, they don't put as much stock on the written exam as they do a physical test, your physical ability test, but it does carry a good amount of weight, and it can definitely make you stand out among the different candidates that are applying. And I know what everyone's saying right now. There's so many open positions in law enforcement. I'm guaranteed to get a position. That is not the case. And that's not the case for one reason. Academies can only fit so many people. Academies, as I've said time and time again, 20 to 40 people is the usual. And they're running that maybe 2 times a year, at the most 4 times a year. So if you say 20 people 4 times a year, that's 80 candidates, right? And if it's a group academy, I couldn't think of the word there, group academy, which means multiple departments send individuals there, such as a community college or something like that. That department only gets your department, I should say, only gets so many slots. So if there's an academy of 25 people, right, that's a pretty good average. That's usually what you see, an academy of 25 people. If there's an academy of only 25 people, but there's 4 different departments sending individuals there, 2 county sheriffs and two different local departments. I cannot think today. 2 different local departments and maybe a state department, right? There's 5 departments. Each one of them can only send 5 candidates. So you're competing. If you're applying to that department, you're competing. It may have 20 vacancies or it may have 100 vacancies, but it can only send 5 people to the academy. Therefore, they can only hire 5 people, which is why the civil service exam or any written exam, any part of the hiring process, you need to do your best and stand out as much as possible. I know I sound like a broken record, but it's the truth, and that's why we do this. So back to the civil service exam. All right, what you need to know about your written exam, and this is pretty standard for, let's just coin it, civil service exams across the board. You're going to have different sections, and those sections are going to be reading comprehension, grammar, math, and then a writing section. Those are usually what you can can expect to see. So let's break this down. Let's go over the reading comprehension. What's that going to look like? Well, it's going to look like you're going to get a passage and they're going to tell you to read the passage and then translate that passage into your selection A, B, C, and D. What does this sentence mean, or what does this word mean when used in this context, right? That's reading comprehension. Do you understand what is being said? So as I said before, you'll read the passage or you'll read a line, and then it's going to ask you, what is this closely related to, or what answer closely explains the meaning of this sentence? That's reading comprehension. That's the easiest way to explain it. And the only way to actually, to improve in reading comprehension is to take classes or to take training on it, or to read, right? You need to have a better vocabulary, right? A greater vocabulary. You need to understand the definitions of words a little bit more. And you'll see in our free training workshop that we have for you in the description, some of those words are pretty elite words. They're not words you would use in an everyday sentence, but they'll ask you to find a word that's a synonym to it or a comparison. So keep that in mind. The next thing you're going to have is math. It's not going to be trigonometry or calculus or algebraic equations. You're not really going to have all that, although you are going to have some understanding of addition, subtraction, multiplication, a division, right? But you're not going to use that in a plain just answer. Now, you might get one or two questions that way, but what it's really going to be is more think around your 10th, 11th, and 12th grade mathematics education for high school. It's going to be means and modes, averages. Can you determine the averages of these three numbers? It might be written into a word problem where you're going to have to actually decipher what is relevant content and what isn't. It's not really, if I gave you 5 numbers and I told you to find the median number or the median of these numbers, and you look through and you're thinking the mode or you're thinking the average, you're going to get that wrong, because it's not going to be the correct, it's not going to be the correct comparison, right? You're not going to know, like, I need to lay all these numbers out in sequential order and then find the 2 numbers, or find the middle number. If there's an odd number, find the middle number, and that's my answer. Or I'm going to need to, if there's even numbers, I'm going to have to take those 2 middle numbers, add them together, then divide so I can find the average, and that's my answer. If you're not familiar with all that, you need to take some training and some practice exams. There we go, practice exams, so that you can better understand what's going to be on there and how to properly apply the correct formulas and techniques you need. Grammar, I kind of touched on grammar a little bit already, and grammar is pretty easy and pretty hard at the same time. So it comes down to your understanding. Can you understand where a comma goes, or can you understand what type of punctuation goes at the end of this statement? And it's not even just that. Can you understand what word you can exchange for another word, or does this need to be plural? These are the things you're going to wind up running into when it comes to your grammar section. And your grammar section winds up being something that trips up a lot of people, for the sheer fact that it has a very significant amount of questions based on vocabulary, right? So the grammar section and your reading comprehension section, those two kind of go hand in hand. And oftentimes you feel like you might be repeating the section, but it's different sections, and they're really evaluating different aspects. Let's get down to the writing section. So the writing section is usually different in every department. I guess that's the easiest way to put it. It's different in every department. It is, sometimes you actually have to do a writing sample, right? They allot you 15 or 20 minutes to read something and do a writing sample. Maybe you'll have to write a police report, or you'll have to write a report of information, and they'll give you a sample of what the information should be based on a scenario that they show. Or you will have to read a writing sample and determine where errors are. And these are there's so many different ways to do the writing section, and it really just depends on your department or agency that you're applying to if they have a writing section in there. Most of the time I've seen on newer exams or newer published exams, they have a writing section for you where there's a sample section of that, and then you have to pull information out of that writing section and apply it to the questions that are being asked. The easiest thing that you can do when it comes to changing your position in the candidates is scoring well on your written exam or your civil service exam. If you can score, in the 90 percentile, you are doing great. Most of the time, you need to score at least above a 70 percentile to even pass. A lot of departments, if they follow the normal sequence, you're going to do your writing section or your correction. You're going to do your written exam first. And your written exam is going to determine whether or not you go to your physical exam. If you don't pass your written exam, they're not going to waste their time on bringing you out to do a PT test because you've already failed one of the conditions to become a police officer. Now, it's not saying that you can't ever take that test again, because 100% you can. But remember, every time you do something, it's recorded. So while it looks very promising for, your admirability or your grit to, hey, I'm not giving up, I'm going to take this exam 100 times if I have to, that doesn't look good for you as a candidate. Even if you're applying to that agency, yeah, they're going to see that you're committed, and you're going to be able to show that you're committed to passing this exam. But it's not going to do anything for you when it comes to possibly applying to a different department in the same locality or the same state, because they're going to be able to pull that exam or all your exams each time. And each time, even if you show progress, you're not, just because you got that bare minimum 70 or you got a 75, it's not going to make you stand out in any way other than the fact that they say, hey, we have candidates that are taking this one time and scoring 85, 90, 95 on it. You may be a qualified candidate, but you might not be the best qualified candidate. And as I said before, you're trying to get into an area where if they run their own police academy, you're trying to get into the top 25 candidates that apply during that cycle. So if you're not standing out in any type of way, and it starts with your written exam and your physical test, but your written exam first, because that's what we're discussing here is your civil service exam. If you don't stand out in that, you're going into your interview without any kind of assistance other than the fact of your confidence in yourself. So you got to do well on your civil service exam. And the only way to do well on your civil service exam, especially if you've been out of school for a while, or especially if you haven't utilized some of these easier or early techniques, I really should say, some of your high school techniques. If you've been in college and you're about to graduate with your bachelor's, it might have been a long time since you've done mean, mode, and averages. You might not have that recollection right there in your head. So you might need to go back and refresh yourself. And that's why a training course really does help with that. But anyway, as I said, our free gift for you getting started as a police officer, that right down below has a practice civil service exam in it. Take this practice test, see where you fall. If you're crushing it, great. Maybe you can get away with just relying on the knowledge that you have, and maybe that knowledge you have will make you excel. If not, start looking at ways to improve your testing score so that you become the highest qualified candidate. Also, the other gift, if you want a free coaching call with myself, discuss something more specific to you, something that you have questions about, something you're worried about, reach out to me. I'd love to help, do anything I can to get that badge put on your chest. As always, stay safe, and I will see you next time.